Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fun Indian Guy podcast. Yeah, I've recorded this in my head, like it's similar all the time, and it always fascinates me somehow, saying the same thing every time, same way. Today, we have a guest on our podcast, Akanksha. Say hi to Akanksha.
Hi.
Akanksha, people, Akanksha.
Hi, people.
She's a fellow service designer and architect, and in today's podcast, we have invited her to talk about amazing topics such as her educational journey in India, in Italy, what she has been learning, what kind of amazing projects she has been doing. One of those being a recent one where she presented a couple of projects at EU Parliament in Brussels, in Belgium. And then the podcast is going to be more about government issues, social issues, and how we can somehow influence what's going on in India, especially in India, and what are our responsibilities, and how both of us are eager to do things to help social status of India as well as the government and policy making and all those things because of what we have learned through our university and life in general. So this episode is amazing. You will be super inspired by the end of it for sure because I was inspired. And just so that you know, I'm recording this intro after actually recording the podcast. So that's why I'm saying what we're going to talk about because we already did talk about it. So it will be really fun. Stay tuned. If you're watching this video and if you don't have that much time, just switch to the audio of this podcast. The links will be down below on this video. I'll see you there or you can hear me there. Anyway, let's roll the intro and start talking about amazing things with Akanksha.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Suyog, also known as the Fun Indian Guy. I'm a designer, musician, filmmaker, and a mechanical engineer. I'm from India, and currently I'm chilling around, traveling around, working around, roaming around, having fun around Europe. And this is my podcast. The Fun Indian Guy podcast. So let's begin today's podcast. First of all, thank you, Akanksha, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Suyog, for asking me to be here.
I mean, super last minute. I think I called her day before yesterday and I asked her for yesterday to record this podcast, but we couldn't find time. So anyway, today we are doing the podcast. Before we go into it, let's do a kind of introduction to Akanksha. So the first question I'll ask, I have written down questions this time.
So professional.
So the question is, who is Akanksha?
The question is, who is Akanksha?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, where do you come from? What do you do? And something like that.
Okay. So, hi, I'm Akanksha. And I come from New Delhi,
Yeah.
India.
Cool.
And I was studying, I am actually an architect back in India, like a registered one. Yeah, I can build stuff. But anyway, I was studying architecture there. And then after that, I worked for a year and I decided to come to Milan to do my master's in the same course as Suyog,
Yeah.
which is product service system design, or let's say just service design.
Yeah.
And then somehow I'm here in Berlin to do my internship.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what it's about.
Okay. That's very interesting. So, as she said, she's also from the same university where I'm studying service design. And the best part about this course is you have people from different backgrounds. And I've talked about it earlier. Like I come from mechanical engineering background and she's coming from architecture background. And we have a lot of people in the same school coming from different backgrounds and streams and fields. So which makes this whole course very interesting because you get really a rich perspective on things from different people. From different countries.
Yeah, different parts of the world I think is also important.
Yeah. Next question to you would be, as you said, your bachelor's was architecture. So let's say you come from the architecture background. So what would you like to say about the whole architecture and why did you do architecture and how was doing the architecture itself in India?
Okay, so for me, architecture was a really random choice. Let's be like I wasn't the structured plan of my life that I want to be an architect. Nothing like that really. Like every other science student back in India, I was supposed to be an engineer.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to do I was applying for everything because I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, engineering being the bigger focus of everything. And like after a really long, undecisive journey, I finally had two choices.
Yeah.
which was aerospace engineering in Singapore
Yeah.
or architecture in New Delhi.
Wow. It's very different. Like.
Yeah, and it was, and I had applied for, like, I had already booked seats for both, and I had paid like a bit of the fees. So yeah, I mean, those were the final choices for me. And then at some point I realized I can't study anymore. I can't do theoretical shit in my life anymore. So I just had
This
to
was
change
after
it.
the 12th standard.
Yeah, this was after the 12th standard, and for
Yeah.
2 years I was enrolled in FITG, which is those IIT
Yeah, I know. Been there.
preparation classes, right?
Yeah.
And I was I was really slogging my way through it. And
Yeah.
after all of that slogging and a really sad life,
Yeah.
I decided that I can't study anymore. And surprisingly, my parents supported it.
Yeah.
And so I
That's very
decided,
important.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I don't think I am more like, I'm not an engineering person probably.
Mm-hmm.
But Singapore was, no, like Singapore or Delhi, and oh my God, I get to go to Singapore, live on my own and everything.
Yeah.
Super nice. But then also my dad supported it. He said, you're more like an architecture person, so let's try that. And it seemed like a practical field. And that's
Yeah.
all I knew about it back then. And I still decided to go for it. And yeah, then architecture in India is sadly 5 years of
Yeah.
bachelor's.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that, you see all your friends graduated, working, earning a lot of money, but you're still there
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
doing n number of hours and sleepless nights and
Yeah.
a lot of that nonsense.
Yeah, and you have to carry all those big things to, or like to the university,
Yeah.
like those 3D models.
You have to carry
Yeah.
big sheets. You have to spend hours at the printing.
Yeah,
You have to make models. And India, and especially in India, we're really doing a lot of things by hand. So we're also like, I also did some of the construction. Like you were really working as a mason,
okay, wow,
lifting bricks, putting cement, building something.
nice.
So
Like as an experience, sounds good.
yeah, it for sure it was good. I don't regret any part of taking up this architecture course or being an architect or taking up the school that I was in.
Yeah,
But it was really I think broad the way they taught us. So
Yeah.
that really helps, I think.
yeah. But I'm still curious. Like how you were preparing in Fiji, which is like super IIT thing. Like I also was in PACE in Mumbai.
Yeah.
And that is very much focused on JEE and AIEEE and all those exams. But how did you crack architectural exams? Like how was the preparation? Is it the same kind of examination or a different?
No, so actually this is funny because I applied for AIEEE, like you said, for engineering.
Okay.
And back then you could give the engineering one and also the architecture one. Like there were two different exams.
Yeah, I remember it now.
So a friend of mine said, I am applying for the architecture one. What do you think about it? And I said, I don't know anything. Let's apply for it. And I applied and I got a really nice ranking, better than my friend who was preparing for architecture. And
Yeah.
it was completely random because I was like, okay, I'm fairly good at drawing, math and stuff. Okay, I've been learning for engineering, so it's okay anyway. And that's when I started thinking that maybe architecture can be an option.
Yeah.
And I was already like this for this AIEEE. I just applied. I didn't really study anything because I was still focused on engineering.
Yeah.
And when that sort of worked out a bit, I was getting like bachelor's in planning, not architecture, but planning in some SPA, the main school of planning and architecture in India.
Okay.
And that's when I realized that I can actually pursue this. So by the time I decided this, it was the last date of getting the form for my college, the one I'm in. So I figured, I have to give this NATA exam for architecture and I have to take a university form and apply. And it was already the last date. So I didn't exactly prepare anything for it because it was too late by
Yeah.
the time I decided. But it was more on the logical questions and bit of general knowledge and stuff like
Aptitude,
that. Yeah. So it wasn't something that needed a lot of
studies and
preparation.
prep. Yeah.
People do it, but I did not have the time to do it, let's
Yeah.
say. But I managed.
But
So
still you made it, so it's okay. It's good. So you spent 5 years in architecture, and after that you were working, if I'm not wrong.
yeah. I spent 5 years in architecture, and then for a year I was working again back in New Delhi as an architect. It's super fun when you can you sign on the drawings and it's like, I made that shit. I mean, it's just a nice feeling, and you see the building actually coming up and you're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's beautiful. Yeah.
I'm the one. That's the cheap thrills about
Yeah.
architecture, I would say.
But there's a lot of things happening in background till
Yeah.
you reach that point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of sleepless nights
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of talking to a lot of people, going to the site, standing in the hot sun because it's New Delhi and you're in the summer, and you're just standing on a construction site trying to talk to people and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it's a crazy experience, I would say.
Yeah. So what made you not switch, but come towards service design afterwards?
So, actually, in the 5th year of architecture, which is supposed to be just 1 year internship,
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of lucky because there was this workshop being floated by this German university. And it was basically an exchange semester with the students in Masters of Architecture in Dessau, where the Bauhaus is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like an exchange, but in India, it was targeted towards architects, like from all over the country, not just a specific school.
Yeah.
But they were looking for architects, and
Yeah.
and I was still an architecture student
Student.
back then, but I still applied and I got through. So we were basically 14 architects, let's say, from India, and 14 from this Masters of Architecture course
Yeah.
in Dessau.
In Germany.
Yeah, in Germany.
Yeah.
And once we did that, it was actually structured in one like weekly workshops or weekly charrettes, as they call
Okay.
it, design charrettes.
Okay.
So every week there was a new professor, a new ideology, a new method, a new topic of the workshop, and you're kind of working with these random groups because all these 14 people who came from Germany were in fact from, I don't know, Turkey, Uruguay, Russia, Ukraine,
Yeah.
Mexico,
Like a mix.
like a mix. So it was something that I was still doing my bachelor. So I wasn't exposed
Yeah.
to something like this yet. So that was like my first step to see, okay, how things happen outside India.
Yeah.
And the workshop was, yes, it was involving all the architects, but I think this is a very different, this is the difference in the design education in India and elsewhere,
Yeah.
that they really focus on design.
Yeah.
So the conversation wasn't always about building design, but design in general.
Yeah.
Like people, I mean, you could just talk about, I don't know, a spoon for an hour because it's design.
Yeah.
So I kind of really liked how it was happening, and I had this idea in my head that I really wanted to talk about design
Yeah.
more. I wanted to study about design in general. But there was also always a part of me that was more into like kind of understanding how things work, or like, okay, if I do step A, what is the obvious step B or step C? Like, how do things function?
True.
So like the planning or the organizational part of it. And then I was looking for different courses for my master's, and I came across this one at Polytechnico. I don't know if you agree with me, but just looking at the website, we didn't know what we're getting into.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, oh,
Yeah. Description was more about strategy, this and that, like mix of everything. I like cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it. It feels like overview of all the fields which come under the design.
exactly. And the name is also product service system
Yeah,
design.
it's very complex.
Yeah,
Difficult to explain.
You don't understand what you're getting into, but it felt
Yeah.
like a lot of different things, and the overarching thing being just design.
Yeah.
So that's why I applied for it. And also for this one, I applied in the last week of the final submission because by then I was still figuring out what I want to do with my life.
True.
Which, as you can see, is
Yeah.
clearly not figured out at all.
But that's okay. It should be in the flow rather than planned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I applied in the last week, and then it happened, and I was like, okay, I never planned to come here. Now what do I do? Like,
Yeah.
it's happening. And then I started figuring it out, and I was like, okay, it's nice. And then we started the course,
Yeah.
right? But I started back in September 2017. He started in 2016.
Yeah. 1 year before. Yeah.
So, and I was still like, okay, what am I doing here? What's happening? Because in the first semester, you don't even understand what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And now that it's been, let's say, 3 semesters, I kind of get it. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that course made a lot of sense.
True.
And it's given me this capability of thinking that I wouldn't have had.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an interesting journey.
Exactly. So as I also discussed this before on one of the big initial podcasts, I came here because it said product service system design, and I was looking for courses in product design. And I was like, okay, this is the closest I can get in Polytechnico. Let's go for it. Because that time the product innovation course was completely Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they switched it from your batch to one more English course. So I was like, okay, this is the more like that's the closest I can get to product design. So that's why I came for product service system design. And turns out the course is all about service design, which is amazing. And like both of us are pretty much enjoying it as far as whatever we are going through or exposed to, which was very interesting. And other thing I would like to point out here is she's talking about the Dessau Bauhaus thing, where she had this charrette kind of experience a couple of years back. I actually made a video on my YouTube channel, which will be popping up if you're watching a YouTube video right now. It's about how our education system is different from the ideology of Bauhaus. Like Bauhaus, again, was a school in early 20th century, which was running from, I guess, 1916 till 1932-ish. And the ideology was super strong. There's a very focused video about the ideology of Bauhaus, about how art and design and skills and craft and everything should be coming together in order to give a birth to what we call design. So just watch it if you want. Very interesting. Just wanted to plug it in. Anyway, so 2 years now, almost 2 years, because you are still in the school. Even I'm in the school, I'm just finishing the thesis. Service design is this new field you're being exposed to, and you're getting a lot of different experiences, projects, different people on different levels. So what is your, not a review, but what do you feel about service design in general now?
So, I mean, I have to say that it's not just a buzzword that people are using these days. That,
these days, last
design,
1 year,
we're doing
it's a
design
buzz.
thinking, we're doing service design stuff. I don't know. It's like
true.
it's been taken as that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I have realized that it works.
Yes.
Like in the beginning, I was like, okay, I mean, yeah, we're studying this because we're supposed to study this, but do I really believe in it? And I started realizing that it really works. Let's say last year around October, because I was in Copenhagen for this workshop, and it was like a 1-week workshop with 10 schools from all over the world, and there were people from different fields.
Yeah.
And there was no service designer, because also from Polymy, it was all interior or architecture students selected. And I think I was selected because my background is still architecture.
Yeah.
But I was like the only service designer, let's say.
The trained service designer.
Yeah. And the very first day, they had a presentation about what this workshop is about. And they introduced service design. And everybody in the room was just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And they just, I mean, the way they did it wasn't the best, because they was like, okay, you have to make this service blueprint. But unless you kind of believe in it, you wouldn't. I mean, it's like, why should I be making a blueprint?
Yeah.
But that's the technical stuff anyway. And it was not just about that one blueprint that they asked us for, but I realized when I was working with those group of people, I could facilitate how they think.
Yeah.
I could make them think in a certain way, or I could optimize that process of thinking.
Yeah.
Because it was just a 1-week workshop, so you don't have time to like overthink things, right?
Yeah.
And there were groups struggling with just thinking part of it.
Yeah.
So since I learned all of this for the past year, that okay, you can use these methods, you can use these tools or whatever, and you can structure a way a workshop can be led.
Yeah.
So I asked my group that, okay, I mean, if you don't mind, I could introduce you to some of this and we can try if it works. And like, okay, post-its doesn't make you a service designer, but we had like this board full of post-its, and every other group was just like, how are these people thinking so much?
Yeah.
And for the first time, I was on the other side of the table where I was telling people what is service design and how it can work. So that's when I realized that, oh, this makes sense.
True.
It works.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was, let's say, a very interesting experience for me. But also then throughout the course, we dealt with very different topics, like the first one being health, about healthcare, then the next one being about a resilient city, then the next one being about beer.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you realize that it's not just like, it's service design, I would say, it's a skill that could then be applied to anything else.
Anything in life, yeah.
So also if I want to go back to architecture and apply it in spatial design, it's only helping
it works. Yeah, because service design is like tools and way of thinking to tackle any sorts of problems and to understand the problems better in order to also come up with a good solutions.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting part about service design. For the people who are listening and have no clue about what is service design, again, a video plug, because On my channel I have created kind of this library where the things are already put into. So if we refer to something, there is always going to be some sort of discussion which I had before on this channel which you can refer to. So she's talking a lot about service design. So there is a video on the channel about 5 fundamentals of service design. It's like a 6 minutes video just to give you an idea what is service design and how you can use it. So just if you are very alien to the topic, you can watch it and come back to this one, or watch it afterwards whenever you have time. The link will be in the description or wherever. So that was service design. Again, post-its. You have a poster here saying just writing posters doesn't make you a service designer. It's the poster is from one of the service experience scam which happened in Berlin. It's like a community, and then they did a lot of workshops and guided not tutorials, but yeah, like lectures kind of things. So post-its is also part of service design. Like just writing post-its doesn't mean you're a service designer, but post-it
Post-its have
play
also
a lot of
become
important role.
that buzz thing.
Yes, exactly.
If I put post-its, oh, I'm brainstorming. No,
Yeah.
you're not.
Yeah.
But
I think post-it are just the medium or the tool. It's more about the ideology or thinking.
yeah.
Also on that, there is one video where I've explained how I use post-its for research. The link will be coming in this YouTube video or in the description. Just check it. Because I don't want to waste time again in explaining everything.
Yeah, makes sense.
So just go there and watch it. Service design journey has been really wonderful also for me, because I'm also coming from similar kind of a story. So I completely agree with her. It has opened up a lot of possibilities where design was never thought of, or design was never applied. Also in social innovation projects,
Yeah.
or that topic was so untouched for me. And till now, like before I started the course, social issues were more like issues which can be solved only on political level or only in the governmental corporations and organizations. And that was really alien for me to even reach and make some impact or change. Because of this course, I was introduced to social innovation. I also talked about it on various podcasts before, also did small experiments in India. You also have been doing a lot of social innovation projects where you kind of apply design thinking, design methods, and all these things which we have learned not only in design school but also in our life, and we try to apply it. So what kind of projects have you done so far in terms of social innovation, like for the people? Because I think you recently did a presentation in EU. Yeah, we wanted to come to that topic as well. So this is like a small segue to the topic. First of all, congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much.
I one thing I like about Akanksha is whenever there is some sort of workshop, competition, or anything like conferences are happening, she's always applying, and she, of course, she gets selected in the end, and she makes it to the thing, and she's getting a lot of experiences and meeting a lot of different people in this whole experience, which is amazing. So in one of such competitions, she took part. I think it was like a long workshop thing,
Yeah.
and followed by project presentations and screening and then filtering and the winners and stuff. So it was called as
Future of Government 2030.
so it happened also in Politecnico di Milano. She'll talk about it, but this is like me giving you intro about it. So she got selected for this, where they were supposed to make projects in a social context or something like that. What was
Yeah.
the brief?
The idea was that we have to imagine the future of the government, like what
Okay.
happens in 2030. What
Yeah.
will be the relationship between a government and the citizen?
Yeah.
So there can be many scenarios in this, right? Like the government can be really strong and the citizen can be weak. While it's like a democracy where the citizens are really strong and the government is really weak.
Yeah.
Or it could be a balanced situation. So this is something that's of course this dynamic relationship still exists. But what we had to imagine was that in 2030, with the kind of technologies we would still have available to us, like the future of AI, big data, blockchain, and all of that, how would this impact this relationship between the government and the citizen? And we had to basically develop our projects on this.
Yeah.
And this competition was floated by the European Commission, JRC being the Joint Research Center at the European Commission. So they had partnered with 6 design schools all over Europe, and Polyme being one of them.
Yeah.
And at Polytechnico, we were asked to again apply for this, send our CV, blah, blah, blah. And then Polytechnico Design School, that is where we are, and Poly Design,
Yeah.
they kind of came together, and we used students from both
schools.
in, in service design or strategic design or similar
Yeah, yeah.
fields. And we had interdisciplinary teams as well again. And it was structured in like 3 workshops last year. So it
Yeah.
started in May 2018. We had one workshop in May for 3 days, one in June, one in July. So it was like, okay, brainstorming, ideation, design development, and all of that. And then we just submitted our entries to the commission. And they finally got back to us saying, okay, we've selected, like, I think in total there were 40 concepts from all over all the schools that were submitted.
Yeah.
And they selected 20. Yeah, they selected 20. And then we went through the second round. Second round was this online debate and discussion.
Yeah.
So they uploaded the basic description and the video of the concepts on their blog.
Yeah.
And we were asked to invite people to start a discussion on it. Like, you read the concept and you feel that, oh, I don't get this part, or I think this doesn't make sense, or how do you think this can be solved? So that's what people commented, which was super enlightening for us, because we never, like, of course you think about the way, like, how this concept could affect people, but you can't go as wild
Yeah.
as getting like 40 people to comment on it.
True.
And then you get reviews from very different fields.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just service designers thinking about it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
suddenly everybody, and maybe it's like a data specialist,
Yeah.
data analyst, and he's looking at things from a very different perspective then.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting for us. And after that online discussion, basically they said that, okay, they will select the final concepts or the final entries. So they selected 7 projects. And luckily for us, both our projects were selected for the
Yeah.
final round
Nice.
to be presented at the commission.
Yeah.
So I was there in Brussels last week,
Yeah.
along with my colleague Jennifer, and we were presenting our 2 concepts
Yeah.
called the Rebirth and the Consumption Show.
Yeah.
And so what we talked about is, for example, for Rebirth, it's about this migration policies, because illegal immigration is becoming one of the really big things that Europe is talking about.
True.
So we were kind of discussing how in the future we can tackle this problem, or how can we provide a base for discussion on this.
Yeah.
And the other one was the Consumption Show, which was talking about the consumption habits, about energy, water, and so on, by each individual citizen, and how
Yeah.
can you monitor that, and how can you somehow regulate all of this consumption, and how the government can play a role in it.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to get into the details because wouldn't make sense so much. But yeah, this was, let's say, the basic
Core of it.
core of it. And it was really interesting because when we presented and when we talked about it, we got a lot of feedback, because there were, again, people who also presented in the morning. They were from different fields, like there were politicians, business angels, investors, sociologists, and stuff like that. So also there, it was a very diverse audience to talk about. And it was something that really, for me, it was really inspiring. Also because as a student, I was able to go to the European Commission and the European Parliament.
Yeah.
And it's
Which
like,
is a big deal.
Yeah. You can't enter the building otherwise. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay. No, it's still the kid in you that was really excited about these things. And then to actually have presented there, and to sort of get acknowledged for the fact that you're there, it's really nice. And then it opened me up to this field where I started thinking about how service design could be applied to policies or policy making, or could then basically impact the people. So in a way, the social innovation aspect.
Yeah.
Not necessarily you doing something, like it's a route you follow, right?
Yeah.
Either you do the small things that are, let's say, not on the policy or the government side,
Yeah.
or you take the higher road, where you're involving the government or the bodies that can implement it.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a sneak peek into that, and it got me really interested in, like, how are we as designers, let's say,
Yeah.
we could also play a role in something like this, because I never thought that I could be someone telling
Exactly.
or thinking about what a government should do, because who am I? I'm just a citizen.
True.
But That's the point.
Yeah.
You are the citizen. You are the one impacted by it.
Yeah.
So you have what it takes to change it.
Yeah. That's all for this part of the podcast with Akanksha. There's much more we're gonna discuss, especially about government and how we should take participation in the development of our own country. In our case, it's India, and we're gonna talk more about it. It's like very interesting and inspiring discussion, which will happen in the next part. Till that, don't forget to subscribe or follow the podcast on YouTube or any other platform where you are listening to it. Also, don't forget to have fun, because having fun is not an option. Ciao.